Hi everyone, my name is Carolina and we are from Manchester Code's February cohort.
Hi everyone, I'm Ellie and today we're going to introduce to you our app roamSafe, an app to help you travel internationally COVID secure. So we thought we'd start our presentation with a quick app demo. So here you can see the landing page of our app roamSafe, and we'll start by signing up. Cool, we've signed up, and I'll show you quickly the sign in. So log out, log in. Ellie Kemp 95. Here we go. So now we're on the home page. Where are we headed? Shall we try Portugal? Okay. Here we go. So this is our country info page, and this has all the COVID information that we wanted for each country for the app. So you can see here, this risk factor here is one of the APIs that we're using in the app, and this warning message will change based on the level of risk. And then this is another API up here, which has the COVID cases or confirmed cases, deaths and recoveries. And then we've also got quarantine information, testing information, and restrictions or policy in the country. And these three are actually mock data, but we'll explain a bit more about that later on in the presentation. And then there's also the option here, you can click this button to randomize the country and you'll get a random country around the world. So let's give that a go. Singapore. Okay, and then one more, Senegal. So now let's go on to the COVID-19 map. So we really wanted to implement sort of an interactive COVID-19 map in our app. And you can see here, if you hover over a country, it changes color based on the risk factor. There we go. We were just getting orange then. Here we go. Red, green, green. And it gives you the risk factor as well out of 5. And you can actually zoom in on the map. So we'll go and zoom in on Africa. Yeah, which gives you a closer look at the different countries. And then another cool thing you can do is click on the country and this will take you to the country info page as well if you wanted to have more of a look at the COVID information for each country. So let's try Cameroon. Here we go. So global risk score 3.3 out of 5, safe to travel, and comes up with the confirmed cases, deaths and recoveries. And because this country isn't part of our mock data, unfortunately, we don't have any further information here. But what we'd like to do, obviously, in future is get an API which will give us this information, although we'll discuss the challenge around that later on in the presentation. So the inspiration behind our app came from when we were both having issues traveling in summer during COVID times. We were both trying to go on holiday to Portugal in June, and it was a nightmare trying to work out what tests we needed on the way out, what tests we needed while we were in Portugal, and then also what tests we were going to need when we came back to the UK, as well as whether there would be quarantine when we came back, what restrictions would be like in Portugal, etc. There were a whole host of problems. And we realised that there wasn't an app that would give us all of this information in one go. And so we wanted to create our own solution to the problem and create an app that would simplify the process for the user by centralising all the relevant COVID-19 information for countries around the world into one app. So moving on to the front-end technologies we used in our app. And the first one was Figma, and this was great when we were designing our app because we could both work collaboratively on the design together. And there's also an option to inspect on the right-hand side, and you can copy CSS directly from Figma into your code, which made things a lot easier when we were styling our app. Secondly, we use React. This is because we'd literally just been learning it on the course, so it was fresh in our brains. And it's also a very popular JavaScript library to learn because it's remarkably flexible. So once you've learned it, you can use it on a vast variety of platforms to build quality user interfaces. There's also lots of good documentation online. So if you ever run into any issues, there's lots of solutions you can find online. And then it also splits up the app into different components, which we found useful. So me and Carolina could both work on different components remotely. And then finally, it has lots of React libraries or packages that you can install to improve the UI of your app, such as React Simple Maps and React Tooltip, which we will mention again later. Next, we use Axios to perform HTTP requests on 2 external data APIs that we used. And we decided to use Axios Overfetch because it automatically converts data into a JSON format, which was much easier for us to use. And then finally, we used a mixture of CSS and Sass. Sass was helpful with our more complicated components, which required layers of styling, because Sass lets you nest your CSS selectors in a way that follows the same visual hierarchy of your HTML. And this nesting feature really helped us to organize our code. We also used Sass to create color variables, which we could easily repeat throughout our styling.
So going through now our backend technologies. So when we first discussed backend, we considered using MySQL and SQLize, as we had used these before in other projects on Manchester Codes. However, when we discussed with Lou, we thought that he might be interested to try and learn a new technology. The main backend feature we wanted for our project was a sign-in feature so that only registered users could access our app, and we've decided that the Firebase was an effective alternative as it simplifies the backend and has an authentication service in the database service if we wanted then to expand our backend later. In the Firebase authentication services, all the users' information is organized in a simple-to-use platform, and there are loads of resources online and documentation, and it's also free to use.
Moving on to problems and solutions with our app. So the main problem that we faced with the app was finding APIs that would give us the detailed COVID data that we wanted. And we managed to find 2 free APIs, one which gave us the country COVID risk factors out of 5, and then another API which gave us detailed COVID figures for each country, such as the number of cases, the number of deaths, and the number of recoveries. For more detailed information about testing, restrictions, and quarantine, all of the APIs that we found you had to pay for. So after a lot of discussion, we decided that the best way to get around this problem was to make some mock data in a JSON format for a select number of countries, just to use as a proof of concept in our app. So we thought we'd briefly show you the Axios requests in action. So here you can see we're making an Axios request to the COVID-19 data rapid API, and this would give us the number of cases, deaths, and recoveries. And then we're also making a request to the travel advisory API, and this would give us the global risk factors out of 5 for each country. And then to show you the mock data, so this is how we formatted our mock data. And we actually got this data from a website called kayak.com, which gave us like the up-to-date data for a select few countries. So to be honest with you, we had lots of different problems when making our app, but the third problem we thought we would raise is to do with our COVID-19 map. So we knew we wanted a COVID map feature in our app, and we decided to use React Simple Maps as it seamlessly integrates with other libraries from the React ecosystem, such as React Tooltip, which we used for the info boxes on the map. The main problem we faced was trying to integrate our own API data with the map so we could customize it in the way that we wanted. And in the end, we ended up having to do a lot of console logging of the data that was already integrated into the map to display each country, and the data from our risk factor API to see if there were any similarities in the data structures. We found that both sets of data had country codes, which we were then able to match up in this function by searching for the map's ISO_A2 property in the risk factor data object in order to display the risk factors for each country in the React Tooltip boxes on the map.
So talking about Agile software development practices now, as Ali mentioned before, we've used Figma for collaborative design, beginning of the project. We've implemented test-driven development using Jest and React testing library in order to test our app components and just check if everything was rendering correctly and to debug and to improve our code. We've done some stand-ups on Google Meet, so we've both worked separately on different components, and then we had regular meetings to discuss what was going well and what issues we had. We also created 2 different branches on GitHub and then done some pull requests, and we've merged everything together. We found that daily stand-ups were particularly helpful when we were styling the project. We both had to refresh our memories on CSS grid and Flexbox skills, and it was helpful to share with each other what we've learned and what tricks we know. We've done some mob programming on Google Meets again. This was when we wanted to work through a particularly difficult problem so we can brainstorm ideas and came up with an effective solution. And finally, we also used Slack as a good point of communication with our tutors and other classmates if we had any questions or if we simply wanted to check in with them. So finally, in the end of our presentation, we would like to present you the future improvements we would like to do in our app. We have three main things. So obviously the first one would be replace our mock data with a paid API, or hopefully a free API that may become available in future, which would enable us to display up-to-date information on quarantining, testing, and restriction for all countries. So the second point would be create database. If we had more time, we would like to have extended our backend and created a database to store user data. The two main components we would like to make were a profile page that would store and display the user data and a favorites page where the users could select a country from a country info page and add to these favorites, and these countries would store as a favorites and each users in the database. We could then access to this data on the favorites page and render all the countries in the grid format. And the last one would be an email notification. Following on this feature before, we would like to enable users to have the option of turning on email notifications, which would alert users when a country from their favorites list changes the risk factor score or has an up-to-date COVID information.
So that's it from us. We hope you enjoyed our presentation. We'd like to thank everyone at Manchester Codes for all of the support and guidance they've given us over the past 7 months, and in particular Luke and Maria for helping us navigate some of the particularly tricky parts of our project. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you again for watching, guys. Bye.